everyone. This is Glenn Stewart with the Gull War Illness channel, and today I am speaking with Douglas Barthelmes, another veteran suffering from Gull War Illness. Good morning, Douglas.
Hey, good morning to you. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good today. I spoke with you a little bit earlier and informed you were in quite a bit of pain this morning.
Yes, sir. Back, joint, chest pain, neck, you name it.
Sorry to hear that.
Everyday battle.
What units and did you serve with them? What time frames, if you remember those?
I was at my permanent party duty station for the most part. Bravo Company, 8th Battalion, 101st Airborne. We were attached to 5th Group Special Forces for just a little bit, and then after that we were back to the airfield over there at King Fahd International Airport, and then the rear detachment area. I think it was fell under headquarters company, if I'm not mistaken, of the 101st.
What was your position during the deployment?
I was a helicopter repairman.
Tell us a little bit about your experience while deployed over there. You know, did you encounter the oil well fires, Scud missiles, M8 alarms?
The alarms went off continually, day and night, for as long as I can remember. It's been so many years. I still remember the alarms because that's one of my triggers, actually. Anything that even resembles an alarm freaks me out. Yeah, we got hit by a Scud missile. It took my bunker out and landed, the fuselage landed about an eighth of a mile behind my bunker. It was the night after the Pennsylvania National Guardsmen of the 53rd got killed over there with that Scud missile. I came in contact with an explosion from a Hellfire missile off of our airfield over there at King Fahd International Airport into one of our own ammo dumps. Big old mushroom cloud, depleted uranium everywhere. If I had to put my, when people ask me about Gull War Illness, it's kind of hard to pinpoint what I got exposed to because there's so many different things that we were subjected to, in the element. Ranging depleted uranium to sarin, to cyclosarin, red nitric acid, not counting the immunity shots that we got before we went over there, and not counting the prostide bromide pills we were taking.
Now, were you forced to take the PB pills?
Yes, we were ordered to. I remember when they first passed them out, and they said we had to take them. It was supposed to protect us from nuclear and biological agents and all this other crap. That's what we were told, so we took them.
Now, on the M8 alarms, what did they tell you about that? Because I remember, for example, our M8 alarms going off, and what they would tell us is that they were malfunctioning due to the environment. Because of the sand over there was so fine, it was causing the M8 alarms to go off, which struck me kind of odd because, prior to the ground war kicking off, they hadn't done that. We were playing around with them, sending them out, practicing. Of course, we pulled them out all the time. And prior to the ground war, we already had those things running. Then when the ground war kicked off, that's when they started going off. And then, the reports coming back from higher command was like, oh, they're just malfunctioning. Did you guys get the same thing?
Yes and no. Before the ground war started, our alarms were going off. I do believe that we had several Scud missiles land in our area, 153 to be exact, I believe, as far as overall. But in our area, I believe I counted 21. So a couple were very close. That one that hit my bunker, definitely a close call. I shouldn't even be here, shouldn't be alive. But every time, I look back at it and think about the chemical alarms and everything, we had the checks saying that it was sarin. Our chemical alarms were going off. We'd get inquisitive about it, and they would just pretty much tell us, oh, it's just drill, or it's just this. And then you'd catch them, you'd catch the higher-ups, generals, colonels, etc., talking to each other, and you'd overhear, well, there was sarin on this one, or there was biologicals of some kind. They just, at the time they didn't really know what, but they knew.
You're correct on what you say. I want to correct my last statement on the fact that it wasn't until after the ground war, but it was actually when everybody was on their own side. Nobody was launching missiles or anything across. They didn't go off. They were functioning just fine. It's when the air campaign actually kind of started where the missiles were flying across and so on, which happened even before the ground war, that's when the M8 started to sound off.
For the most part, yes.
And we were being told, they're just broken, they're just malfunctioning. Okay, this is the stuff that's supposed to protect us, and it can't it's not even working right. And like, wow, gives me...
Well, our mop gear didn't even work, so, I mean, they lied to us all.
Yeah, the mop gear and the filters on the gas mask are only good for 8 hours. So,
Correct.
And then we stayed in mop gear, mop 4, with everything on for days. So once you crack them once you crack them out of the sealed packages, that's 8 hours. After that, they are no longer good. If you turn around and you throw them on, and you have it on 3 days later, guess what? You might as well just throw them on the ground. It's not doing any good.
Exactly. Well,
yeah.
They knew that. If you look at everything that Gulf War vets have been through, including Project Anvil, which was the CIA, the VA, and the DOD, a project to deter ill Gulf War vets, as such as ourselves, from receiving proper treatment and getting the proper scientists in to do the research. It was a PR campaign. It's sad but true, but, I mean, you look at, Georgetown University and a lot of these others that are really making breakthroughs proving that we are brain damaged and our bodies are damaged because they've sat on this so long without doing what was right by us.
Yeah, the evidence, this day, the evidence is there. I mean, anybody trying to dispute that, it's like, okay, go get educated, because apparently I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you, because you're just too stupid to realize the fact. When in doubt, go Google it. When that stuff started going off and all that, while in theater, did you start to develop health problems then? Or did you start developing once you got back? What has happened with your health since the deployment?
I used to be a runner,
mm-hmm.
and my fastest 1 mile time was a 4:18, which most people would consider that pretty much lightning quick. Okay, after returning back stateside, I was showing some problems while I was over in Desert Storm, but after getting back, I would forget what to do on the aircraft. I would literally fall asleep while working.
Yes.
I'd go to the men's room and I would literally black out. Falling asleep, blacking out. As far as my physical self goes, my joints were hurting. My time running went drastically down, and over the years it got so bad, I went from walking to cane, and then cane to double arm cane, to a wheelchair, and been in a wheelchair since. My joints have gotten so bad, my muscle weakness in my legs is getting so bad that it's really killed my mobility.
When I was in the military, because veterans were complaining of some kind of illness, they called it at the time Pacific illness. And the military was doing what they call a PGI examination. Did you ever hear about that or participate?
No, I was never told about anything like that. I had gotten out of the military October 16th of 91. They'd take me off my aircraft because I kept forgetting what to do. I was showing so many problems and everything else. They didn't give me any proper medical examination. They do have it recorded that I was having those kind of problems. In all honesty, I'm only at 10% for hearing as far as service-connected.
Wow.
So it's one of them things. I've been fighting 5 years, so you would think that the VA would step up and do their job. I mean, I know this interview is not about the VA, but at the same time, indirectly, it is about that, because we did our job. Plain and simple. We did our job, and we kind of expected that they were going to do our job if we got hurt in the line of duty.
Well, they were going to do their job. You mean that they were going to step up and do their job if we got hurt?
Yeah, we got hurt, but nobody ever stepped up. And that's the sad part about what we go through as Gulf War veterans is we tote the full bill.
So how did you realize that you suffer from Gulf War illness?
One day, I was just doing my normal thing, trying to work a job and everything else, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And in all honesty, I mean, I tried getting job after job after job. I'd get fired, or the rage in me, I'd quit, any number of reasons. I mean, I couldn't hold a job to save my life. When I was in the Army, I was healthy. During the last part of my service and, going into the civilian world, I was all screwed up because of it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I have been hearing over and over again is, just like with myself, lucky for me, I was able to hold the job. However, one thing I'm hearing over and over is the fact that, us being in the military, we are so perfectionist. Everything's dressed right, everything's detailed. And that's how I've always been. And I hear it over and over again from veterans. We started to develop a very short temper. Everything just ticks us off. It's like, get away from me. Leave me alone. Snapping back and unable to focus, unable to think straight. Of course, the employers get sick and tired of it. Like, you got to go. You have some issues there.
You think? All the stuff that I've seen, I helped the Air Force people over there, over by the S4, took some of the bodies and everything else, body parts, and, being 102 degrees out. I've seen my fair share of death, and it was, at that age, being a kid, it was too much for me. I'm not trying to sound like a weakling, but it does change a man. No matter what they say, you ain't never going to be right again.
Yeah, I remember even my personality had changed once I got back, because I used to be, when I was in the military, I used to be one of the clowns, always making everybody laugh, telling the dirty jokes and all that stuff, and never got mad, never got in fights or anything like that. And then, once I got into the civilian market, little by little, I became more irritable, I had these extreme headaches. People would come around my desk, and I would just snap at them, and it was wow.
My family and friends, they didn't want to be near me. It got to the point where, I realized, it was a slow, gradual process, but, some parts of it were faster than others, so like the chest pains, the gastrointestinal problems. People don't understand what it's like to have diarrhea for 5 years at a time.
The thing that bothered me about all this stuff, too, is the fact that I would get angry with my own self because I would see what I was... At first, I really didn't realize it, but then I started seeing what I was doing, biting everybody's head off and being snappy and just a grouch. And, it was like, I would think, that's not me. What the heck? What is going on here? That is not me as a person.
And you know what's the sad part, though? Guys like us, we turn to the VA to get help, and then you don't get it. And it leaves that bitter taste in our mouth that makes that rage even much worse because, it's not that we feel that we deserve this because we served our country. No, we deserve it because they promised it to us. If you get hurt in a war, you kind of expect to be taken care of as far as your ailment. That they're going to say, hey, yeah, we can help you with this or this or this, and then they don't. They leave you hang dry, literally.
So with the VA, have you submitted items specifically for Gulf War Illness?
Since the very beginning. Everything that I've ever claimed with the VA was Gulf War Illness and PTSD.
About what year was that?
All the illnesses.
How long ago was that?
My last claim, because when I first started out, I didn't realize that you had to keep following through.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I met a Vietnam vet friend that told me that you got to stick with it. And I'm like, all right, I finally stuck with it. But I think my first, as far as the claim that's in now, was from back in 1995.
Wow.
And it's still in the appeal process.
Holy!
I'm on my second remand from the Board of Veterans Appeals, and they took the 16 disabilities and chopped them down to 8.
That is insane.
How they can do that, I don't know, but it's the government. They can do what they want, Unfortunately, we reaped the whirlwind.
When doing your claims and all that, have any of the records been lost or anything like that?
Several times.
Oh.
Well, for one, over during Desert Storm, we really didn't keep good records. When we got hit by that Scud missile, I can prove that that's where the missile landed.
Yeah.
I can pull it up on Google Map even and show you exactly to the latitude and longitude where it hit and where my bunker was, the proximity. There's no guessing in it. But I'll give you an example. There was a time, for example, that I was on guard duty over there at King Fahd International Airport on the south side, where we had a Mercedes-Benz full of AK-47 shooting at us. Or that time that we were bringing new soldiers in country without weapons by bus over to the S4 area, and we were being shot at, and I was driving the bus, actually. I was being shot at, no way to return fire, nowhere to go, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, nothing. I was doing 70 miles an hour in a Mercedes-Benz bus, trying to keep these soldiers alive.
Now, the health problems that you're having now, do you suffer from fibromyalgia?
Yes, but I can't get the VA to own up to it.
What about irritable bowel syndrome?
I've got irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. I've got hearing loss, vision loss, heat, light, and chemical sensitivity, PTSD, gastrointestinal problems, chest pain severe to the point where I have to take nitroglycerin. VA, thank God, has been nice enough to get me that. The VA has done a lot for me, but at the same time, there's a lot they haven't done for all of us.
Yeah.
Because they just don't want to give the Gull War Illness any credit.
And see, that's the thing. Your claims on fibromyalgia and IBS, those are two of the presumptives that, per their own law, their own policy, it's right there on their website. It says that right on their website, if you look at the presumptives of fibromyalgia, it says it does not have to be proven as service-connected, period. The veteran comes down with fibromyalgia and served in the Gulf, guess what? Approved. That's bottom line. That claim should be approved.
Right. Well, they're still working on my appeal, and when I call the VA regional office and ask them 3,000 times, what are they doing? They give me we're working on it, Mr. Barthelmes.
Have you been going through a VSO or a congressman or law firm?
I had a lawyer, and she up and quit on me. She said the VA's never, this was her exact words, what she told me. She said the VA will never pay for that Gull War Illness. I'm dropping your case.
Wow.
And so I started going through my congressman here in Missouri, and I call his office, and they tell me all they can do is check with the regional office to see where I'm at. But at the same time, I mean, with the heart problems, the lung problems, I've had bronchitis. When I first got back from Desert Storm, I came down with bronchitis, but they didn't really diagnose it until after I got back. And then they tried to blame it on smoking. That's the one thing the VA is notorious for, is trying to push something off on something else.
Yeah, everything. When I started my claim process, they were trying to push everything. They were trying to convince me and everybody, around me that it was a PTSD mental condition. And I was like, no, I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
I told them flat out, I said, no, I'm not suffering from PTSD, but you guys are really starting to give me a case of VASD.
When I first started going to the VA about Gull War Illness, they said, oh, it's all in your head, or you're making it up, or you're lying. I mean, this is how our veteran system has led us to believe that it's kind of like, and I really hate to say it about our system, but it's just not working.
I'm going to tell you one thing. When it comes to the claims, one of the things, I tried going through my congressman as towards appealing my claims and so on. This is from my own experience. One thing I'm going to tell you is the fact that these representatives that they assign you to represent veterans on their claims and so forth, they are not professionally trained in that area. They kind of pick somebody out that has no specific training in that area, kind of like hey, you're assigned to veterans. And I'm going to tell you, this is what I'm going to tell you. Those people, being that they are not up to par on policy, on law, and so forth, the VA knows that they can take and tap dance around the issue, camouflage it, and just totally confuse the representative.
Not just the representative, though.
Well,
the VA is very handy at confusing the veteran, too, because with the confusion aspect of Gull War Illness, there's times that we all get confused. It's just part of our problem.
Well, because our mental cognitive issues, our brains are not working so well that, it's really easy to confuse us. The things I recommend people doing, I wouldn't say don't get hold of your congressman, but you have to get educated, and you have to, when I was dealing with the congressman's representative, I would tell them, he would forward me their response, and I would explain to him, no, that's not correct. They're throwing you a bunch of BS. These are the specific questions you need to ask them. They are trying to confuse you. They are trying to, basically, they're tap dancing around the issue in an effort to prolong this and hopefully you and I will give up. And, one of the things I tell veterans, the worst thing you could do is represent yourself. I always tell veterans, your best bet is get hold of a strong VSO, like whether it be the American Legion, DAV, or whatever. You have to go car shopping. Don't go to a VSO and assume that VSO is going to go full force, represent you, and be knowledgeable. Kind of ask questions like shopping for a car. If you go in there and you start asking questions, you get the feeling that, I don't think you're going to cut it for me. Get out of there. Go find another one.
Right. Well, when you live in urban, rural America, there's not many, the one thing I realized, because I do have PTSD as well as Gull War Illness, is, over the time frame, because of the economical standing, in other words, being a veteran without a job or anything else, you have to move to wherever you can afford to live.
Yeah.
And by doing so, it cuts your options with the VA as well, and with BSOs and et cetera, because I live in, rural country land, and it's hard to get around. I mean, it's hard to find a VSO.
Yeah.
It's hard to find anybody that knows anything about Gull War Illness. That's one of the big dilemmas that's hitting a lot of veterans is they live in rural America. They don't live in the city where there's good access to VA hospitals and everything to that effect. So basically what I've done is gathered my own information, my own evidence, and I've submitted everything to the VA, and they still bushwhack you. As far as that goes, my friend, what are us veterans supposed to do when we get hurt in war and we did our job, we lived up to our responsibility, and then we expect them to be responsible as well, and they tell us basically, in layman terminology, to pound sand?
From my experience, what worked for me to finally get my claims approved was the fact that, I had tried using the VSO, my senator, and several other representatives and so forth. And everything kept on coming back, denied. And you know how the Secretary of the VA started mandating the town hall meetings, right? And I attended the town hall meeting for the regional office. And I brought all my documentation down there, and I brought them the VA policy in front of all the veterans and the news agency, news media right there. I explained to them, I said, look, here's the policy right here. I went over a couple things, but I told them, for example, here it is, fibromyalgia. Here's the policy. I printed it out from your own website this morning, and it's time-stamped, today's date. Here's the law that covers that. I submitted all that. Here's the documentation as evidence that I submitted with the appeal explaining why the decision was incorrect, and I need you guys to look into this because that right there, it should have never been denied. And I told them flat out, I said, if you think I'm going to give up, that's never going to happen. I will continue to fight, even if I have to continue to write the president, which I have, I will continue to do that. I'm not going to go away. And sure enough, I spoke with the regional director and his assistant, and they went over my claims again. And bottom line, they turned around and said, oops, yep, we made some big-time errors on there. So I went from 60%, now I'm permanent.
Nice. Well, I wrote the president, I wrote Congressman, matter of fact, if it wasn't for, and I got to give a shout out to Congressman Robert Adderhole from Alabama. If it wasn't for him, I never would have got my pension. To be honest with you, if I hadn't got non-service connected pension, I wouldn't be alive today, or I'd be homeless, one or the other.
That's outrageous that you're still at 10% claims from 1995, and you're still getting denied. That's wow. It just blows my mind.
Well, that's part of Gull War Illness, and that's what we as veterans have learned to accept over the years. In all honesty, why beat around the bush? We expected our government to have our six, like we would have each other's six, and they haven't. They dropped the ball on us. We are the forgotten warriors of our time.
What it comes down to is they're looking, postponing in hopes of, if we keep on delaying all this stuff, hopefully these poor little old saps will just wither away and croak, we won't have to deal with them.
That's absolutely correct. And the American people need to understand this. It's not something that's in our, it is in our head, literally, but not imaginative-wise. This is a real disease. It's a real illness. They came up with a new term for it, multiple chronic something or other. To me, it's always going to be Gulf War illness because...
The thing about that is the VA was trying to push the agenda of calling it chronic multi-illness. And the attempt with that was trying to lump in, what they were looking to do is basically anything that they could not explain, let's just lump them all into one package. And, we fired back and we told them absolutely not. Ours is specific to our war era. We are not, it's different than any other war. The term, we told them flat out, the term CMI, it's offensive.
It undermines what we have.
Exactly.
Well, in all honesty, it's like I've got carpal tunnel, tinnitus. I have ailments from head to toe, literally. Pain, chronic pain daily. And the more I do, the worse it gets. Basically, what I try to do is manipulate my own body to get more done of what I can do, just so I can keep my strength up to live longer to fight them even harder. The only thing that most of us Gulf War veterans, from what I've seen, all we want is say yes. We want that letter from the VA saying, yes, you are service-connected. This is what you got from your service. That closure.
The acknowledgement of the truth, one thing, but we also we lost 23 years. Over 23 years were lost because of the VA's mentality of, oh, it's a mental condition. Just think about it. If they had started doing the real research back then, we might, at this day, we might have been able to actually find cure,
Not only a cure, but just substantial employability.
Exactly. I don't want to be unemployed on a freaking government handout. With my knowledge of, when it comes to the communication field and my background, I know dang well I can have a job that, earns me a very comfortable income. If you think of it from the logical sense, why the heck would I give up a job that paid me very well? I enjoyed doing it. I loved it. Why would I give that up to live on a disability from the VA, which doesn't even come to up? It doesn't even come to 1/3 of the income that I was making. That's just stupid and asinine. What we want is the VA to now do real research, come up with better treatments instead of just doping us up, instead of them coming around and saying, okay, we'll just give you oxycodone, morphine, and stuff like that. We'll just put you in a state of zombieism, and we'll just push you to the side. That's not what we want. We want things that are going to give us a better quality of life, and maybe just, stop the progression of the illness, stop it in its tracks, give us a better quality of life, and just maybe, possibly, a cure. If they could find a way of stopping this and maybe reversing the progression of the disease, by all means, I would love to get my butt back to work.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you 100%, but the reality of it is, a lot of us now have permanent damage.
Yeah, they waited so long that the damage is so far gone that the chances of reversing it is like slim to none.
We do want the VA to make it to where we have a better quality of life. That's everything to us because we know that from what I gathered as far as most Desert Storm veterans usually live between 45 and 52. Kind of young, don't you?
Yeah, Gulf War veterans are passing away like dead flies. They're just...
Everything. I keep track of this. Every single day, I cannot read online where another one of my brothers or sisters has passed away. Every single day.
It is just like I tell people when I went to the RAC meeting in D.C.,
back in February, yeah.
Well, the one prior to that, I had gone up there, and, I had a chance to speak with several senators and congressmen and so forth, and I told them, right now, when it comes to Gulf War illness, this is a death sentence. It is a slow and extremely painful death sentence. I look at it this way. If you want to kill me expeditiously. Get it over with. Get it done. Get it over with. Make it a one-shot. Boom. Gone. And I tell them flat, the chances, I try to explain to them, right now the way my body is functioning, maybe I might hit 60 years old, but the possibility of hitting 70 string,
There's no way.
80, out of the question. There's no way I'm going to, 75, that's out of the question. I'm, with the way my body is going, I know I'm not going to last that long. Eventually, something's going to turn around and kill me.
Well, everybody, here's the funny thing. Everyone always tells me, well, we all have to die sometime. But personally, I'm with you on that boat. It definitely is a death sentence. And the sad part is we can feel it every day.
Yes.
There's not a day goes by that the pain, any number of the ailments, they afflict you so bad sometimes when it really flares up the worst that you can literally feel yourself dying, literally. And you look in the mirror and I've done this 1,000 times. I've looked in the mirror and I said, God, why this? Why were we as soldiers meant to suffer this bad? And the only answer I've ever come up with is the fact that these things happen. We got exposed to multiple chemicals, whether it be the oil well fires, whether it be the outhouse detail where you had to burn, I don't know about you.
Yeah, I've done plenty of that.
Yeah, me too. And we were using JP4 jet fuel to burn the feces and everything.
Yeah.
And God, was the smell from that alone could not go over a camel. And just imagine what it did to our lungs, not counting the biologicals that were in the air. You had the blowback from Kamashah bunker. You had the blowback from the Scud missiles. You had that dust going in your lungs every single day. It doesn't matter how good you were at wrapping up your face during a dust storm. You ate more sand than you did your food. We signed up to do our job, and we did our job. But in all honesty, our government has failed us miserably. From the Department of Defense to the CIA to the VA, all the way down, from the top to the bottom. They've denied proper scientific research. Even when they were handed the proper scientific research, they ignored it.
Yeah, and that's only because the reason why that's all been done is the fact that they don't want the general public to know that the U.S. government authorized shipment of all the components to make the chemical and biological warheads to Iraq during the Iraq and Iran war. The stuff that they had over there that they used against us, that was stuff that companies here in the U.S., made in the USA, sent to them.
Yep.
Via government contracts, third parties. All you have to do is look at the legal reports. The receipts are there.
I believe Hillary Clinton was on the board of directors for LaForge Chemical Corporation, if I'm not mistaken, which illegally traded some of the components to Iraq.
That's the thing. They don't want the public to know. They don't want the public to know is, okay, well, we send these soldiers over to Iraq to kick them out of Kuwait, and we're going in there because we have to destroy the WMDs, of which we sold them.
Exactly. They broke international trade laws.
They
still have not.
They broke the Geneva Convention.
Yep. And did they get any punishment? No.
No, exactly.
As I said, the Gulf War veterans with Gulf War illness have toted the full bill, period.
And when it comes
to every
absolutely.
day we suffer, and we realize, we talked earlier, and one thing that you said that really stuck in my head, as far as you wish you died over there instead of coming back with this.
Oh, yeah.
Gulf War illness.
I can tell you, honestly, that's exactly how I feel. Not lying. I would have preferred to have dove into an enemy's bunker and engage my enemy in hand-to-hand combat and have him stab me in my gut with a bayonet or something, then have to come back, do my duty, serve my country, do my duty, come back, get sick, have the government abandon you like trash, throw you away, discard you, and say you are not worth crap. I would have...
And then you're feeling that way. Everybody that I've ever met that also has Gulf War illness, as well as myself, we all feel the same. We feel betrayed by our own country. And as far as, how we feel physically, mentally, every shape, form, and fashion of it all, is there are things worse than death, and Gulf War illness is one of those things that is worse than death.
On that note, one thing I want to clarify, I wouldn't say so much that our country betrayed us, because the general public is not even aware. If you went down the street and you asked 100 people, I can bet you the vast majority of the people that you would ask about this had no concept, no idea, no knowledge about this.
No, they don't.
But it was our government, which we were, our employers, which we served. Those are the ones, DOD, CIA, all these people entangled in the government, those were the rotten bastards that they betrayed us.
They're still doing it, my friend.
Oh, yes.
They're still doing it until they make good on their promises to us and to every veteran who has ever fought for their country and come back feeling isolated, like you said, thrown away. We all go through it. The one thing that I realize is as long as something doesn't affect a normal person, then normally they don't want to hear it. And that's the sad truth about our, not just our country, but all of society. Look at the UK Gulf War vets that are ill. The Australian Gulf War vets that are ill.
Well, that's because those countries right there, those governments from those countries are going to back up the other one. So if the corruption's in the U.S. government and the UK government is the ally, of course they're going to kiss their butt and cover it up too. They walk hand in hand, kissing and licking each other's buttholes. It's happening not only here in the U.S. You look at UK, Canadian soldiers, Australian, so on. It's sad. I mean, if you look at right here in the U.S., over 250,000 Gulf War veterans suffering that we know of.
Yeah.
Now, you add on all the other countries, who knows what the number is? Hell, it could be well over 1 million.
At least, because how many of the Gulf War vets are already dead? The numbers are astounding. And one of the key phrases that people always tell me, numbers don't lie. And those numbers, without a doubt, they prove our case for us, basically.
All scientific evidence is all out there. I mean, it can't be denied anymore. There's all kinds of scientific proven evidence proving the fact. So I want to thank you, Douglas, for taking part of this interview so we can educate the general public and push for VA reform to step up to the plate and start helping veterans from the first Gulf War that are suffering from this. It needs to stop.
You want to know what would help? You want to know what would help us Gulf War veterans? If the VA doctors would take their titles of PhD or whatever, set them to the side, and actually listen to the veteran.
Humanity. Approach us from the aspect of humanity. Have some compassion. Have some humanity. I am not a number. You and I have a name. Don't talk to me as, one each veteran. No, my name is Glenn, damn it.
Exactly.
All right,
but
Douglas.
When it comes to Gulf War research or Gulf War illness, all they do is push us to the side for the most part. And in rural America, it doesn't seem like any of that research has trickled down yet, because anytime I ask any of the VA doctors, they don't have a clue.
Yep. Absolutely.
They don't have a clue. They don't want to do the research because that's time out of their paycheck.
So,
So it's one of those things. We not only do we need to educate Joe public, Americans, we also need to educate our own doctors by pointing them in the direction of the latest scientific research.
Thank you for taking time to participate in the interview, Douglas.
I appreciate it, Glenn.